and justice for all.
Will you take roll call?
Mr. Fleming? Here. Mr. Hollabaugh? Here. Mr. Smallwood? Mr. Wigan?
Here.
Mrs. Jordan?
Here.
And I'm sure you report.
Thank you. It's time for public comment. If anyone has any comments, please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Vicki Austin, Hemlock Street in Bedford. The public is required to comment on agenda items before those items are presented. Item 26 on tonight's agenda is impossible to comment on with a subject listed only as building inspection. Could this be any less transparent? The Township website clearly states the Planning Commission plays a major role in the Township by giving advice and providing recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on planning and community development matters. Matters addressed by the Planning Commission include, but are not limited to, the zoning and land use ordinance. So you state in writing that the Planning Commission plays a major role, including ordinances, but in this, as in our prior ordinance updates and revisions, the Planning Commission is not included in the process. There are 2 items, a solar farm item on number, let's see, 19, sorry. And the item I just stated, which have not been put before anyone before the Planning Commission. This is not the transparency that you tout. The Planning Commission is a valuable arm of West Deer local government. Its members should not be excluded from their intended roles.
Any other comments?
First of all, this is Mary Calavota, Crystal Spring Court in Gibsonia. I want to congratulate all of the candidates who won their elections yesterday. And I wanted to follow up on the comment that Vicki made with regard to the solar farm, which is number 19. In this proposed ordinance, there is a statement that says, whereas the Township's Planning Commission reviewed the proposed ordinance at its meeting on June 26, 2025, and voted to or not to recommend that approval of the solar ordinance. So I am hoping that that does not mean that that's going to be skipped. I am hoping that that is going to be referred to the Planning Commission for its input. Thank you.
Good evening, Jack Burrick, 37 Corberwood Lane. Hello. Congratulations also to all the candidates who won. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. First of all, again, the concern I expressed last month about the fact we have discussion items with no detail on them, and it makes it very difficult for the public to comment on those items, even though they've come up several times. Also, the same concern about the 2 zoning ordinance changes that just appeared, and there's been no mention that they were being worked on. Specifically, I did want to address on the solar ordinance. I think it's a great idea that we're doing that. I'm not sure if the other members of the supervisors had a chance to really read through this. I have a number of questions about it. I didn't get to go through it in detail because I didn't have much time. But there's a couple of things that look like they need corrected, as well as some questions about the use districts. For example, one thing I'll just point out under the ASES, basically residential use, is it states in here under section 3, number 7, energy production, the ASES shall be designed so all energy is used on site. I know just a little bit, enough to be dangerous and ask stupid questions. We have net metering in Pennsylvania. Many residential solar installations generate more electric than they need, and it's put back into the grid. That would make this particular statement in the ordinance incorrect, because it isn't all used on site. So that's something that probably should be looked at in more detail. The other question I have is, while the alternate, the ASCS, which is residential, is allowed in all zoning districts, which makes sense, the SCF definition, which is basically the larger scale, is only allowed in rural estate. And I question why that's the case. Why we wouldn't allow that in industrial, commercial, and also agricultural rural areas? So if a farmer wants to rent property for solar installation, why wouldn't that be allowed? And why are we restricting it to only one zoning district? We allow oil and gas in a lot more. So I think that's something that should be looked at. Same for the BESS, the battery installations are only allowed in rural estate. That should also be looked at as to why they wouldn't be in commercial and industrial areas also. So I guess the question I have is, before we vote to send this on to a hearing, why wouldn't we send this to the Planning Commission and give them a chance to review this and make sure that it's appropriate for our township? I don't understand what the urgency would be to get this approved right away. So I just ask you to not vote to send this to hearing tonight. Give the residents and the Planning Commission a chance to review it and make sure it's really correct for the township. There are a couple of other things in here I'm not going to get into now because I don't want to run out of time. But the other thing is there's a couple things that might be in conflict with the buffering and zoning that's being worked on right now, the buffering and landscaping. And the one other thing on that is on the residentials, it says that it needs to be buffered around them. That needs to be explained further because you don't want things growing up in front of solar panels. That prevents them from working properly. So I'm asking you to vote no on moving this to hearing until the public and the Planning Commission have had a chance to review it further. Thank you.
Nicole Zealand, Glasgow Road. I would also like to request that you table the authorization of moving both of these ordinances to a hearing until the Planning Commission and the public has adequate time to review and provide comment. I'd also like to request that we add some more detail into the discussion items so that the public can meaningfully contribute. I've personally got a lot invested in the live streaming of township meetings here, and I would love to be able to comment on this, but it just says discussion. So if we have a little bit more detail, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, attached to the minutes of the regular business meeting on April 16th. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Make that motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Hollenbach, second by Mr. Fleming. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Attached to the finance officer's report. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the finance officer's report as submitted?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Fleming, second by Mr. Wigan. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Attached is the list of bills. Do I have a motion to pay the list of bills as submitted and all reimbursable items in compliance with generally accepted accounting practices?
I'll make the motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Hollenbach, second by Mr. Fleming. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Attached is the police chief's report. Are there any questions? Comments on the golf outing?
Absolutely.
It was a great day. Sun was shining.
The sun was shining. We held our annual K-9 fundraising golf outing on Friday, May 16th, this past Friday. I'd just like to thank everyone who contributed in whatever way they did, whether it was sponsoring holes, donating prizes, volunteering to help us run the outing, those that participated in it. It was a great success. We raised approximately $12,500 to put towards the needs of our K-9, so thank you everyone. We much appreciate it.
Anything else to add today?
I don't know if anyone's going to get to this, but I'd just like to thank everyone also who responded last month to the storm damage we had. Obviously, it affected everyone here. Everyone from Sergeant Sharina that dealt with the EMA here at the station, to my officers that responded, to the fire departments and to the road departments, Public Works, and to the township residents who helped out also. I was up here that night and watched everyone working together, and it was really impressive to see how all these agencies work so well together. So I'd like to basically give a big thank you to all of them too.
Thank you. Attached is the Public Works Forms report. Are there any questions? Attached is the engineer's report estimated by Shoup Engineering. Scott, do you have anything now later? Okay.
Do you have any update to McIntyre Road?
Wasn't that in our manager?
Back at the paving.
Yes, so McIntyre Road, I did, you had mentioned that maybe I should take a look at it, I did. Public Works did go out and do some patching on that road. It seemed the worst part of the road was between Allison Road and Foxwood Drive. I, pursuant to Mr. Mayor's request, I did put together an estimate as to what the cost would be if we started at the Richland line and went up to Allison Road. And that's about the extent of it that I've done on my end, so.
Attached is the planning, zoning, and code enforcement report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Joseph. Joseph, what was the permit that was issued? The Calcium permit?
Can you say that?
A Calcium permit for Hyperion in a meter building?
Oh, that's for the interconnect side. I'm sorry.
So that's off of 910.
Correct. Yes.
What is the Calcium?
I have no idea.
It's what they add to gas to it, Robbie.
Something that infuses
It makes,
capital?
it gives it a smell, so.
It's not time for public
Sorry.
comment right now.
But yes, Mr. Wigan, that is for the interconnect side.
Good night, sir.
Parks and Recreation report. Are there any questions?
Just one.
Resolution.
Sounds like mine.
What?
It was the baby.
The baby.
The board did not receive a report from Westier Fire Department number 1. Attached is Westier number 2's report. Are there any questions? Attached is number 3's report. Are there any questions? Attached is EMS report. Are there any questions? Comments?
Daniel, did you hear from anything from number 1? I know you reached out to him
In which regard?
as far as your report.
No. We received, the financial report we received one back in April, but it was the same report that's been denied in the past. And because it isn't what the board has been requesting. And we've been saying that since last year. When they got back to us, they said we submitted it, and I said, again, it's not the proper report, and I haven't heard anything since.
So that's not what's on the resolution? It doesn't match?
It doesn't match what the other, what was handed out at the joint meeting we had 2 years ago, and it's not what number 2, number 3, and the EMS all gave us, which is what the board is looking for.
Resolution number 2025-8, financing of police SUV. A resolution of the Township of Westier, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorized the lease purchase of a 225 Ford Police Interceptor and the entering into a lease purchase agreement and related documents with Huntington Public Capital Corporation. The resolution is attached. The Township solicited bids for the following and received proposals from the following: Huntington Bank 4.40%, First Commonwealth 5.23%, and Release did not offer a bid. Are there any questions regarding the resolution?
Yeah, which bank did we have an issue with the last time we financed that changed their interest rate?
all of them, but that one was, that was the one, they're from New York. Do you remember which one that was?
Neither of these two.
No. We're not going back to them. I have a bid list I sent them to, and we removed them from bid list after that.
She can stay, it's okay.
Just limit to 3 minutes.
Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-8, authorizing the lease purchase for 2025 Ford Police Interceptor and entering into a lease purchase agreement and related documents with Huntington Public Capital Corporation?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Alba, second by Mr. Wiggin, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Appointment of Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority Board. With the current vacancy on the Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority, the township advertised and requested letters of interest from any residents interested in the position. The board received one letter of interest from Daniel Laughlin, and it is attached. Are there any questions regarding that appointment? So we don't know who Daniel Laughlin is. He's here today. No, let's see. Do I have a motion to appoint Daniel Laughlin as a member of the Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority to fill an unexpired 5-year term which expires December 31st, 2029?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Wiggins, second by Mr. Holloway, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Authorization hearing advertisement of ordinance number 461, nonprofit recreation exemption, and ordinance of the Township of West Deer, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending chapter 210 zoning of the code of ordinances of the Township of West Deer to revise the definition of recreation facility. Are there any questions regarding the ordinance?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible to change the language in here where under the definition of recreational facility, it says to include for-profit and non-profit for the provision of recreation or entertainment? And then it appears the last sentence was added that says that this term shall not include charitable or nonprofit events totaling 2 days.
I mean, that's in it is meant to cover the charitable events that would be broader in scope, but I think folks who were here last month, and I think there was an unintended consequence from the way the prior definition was written, so, you know, our directive was, you know, my office anyway, was to, you know, we really want to exclude these sort of minor, non-impactful events, but I guess I would say that if there's a charitable event that would be, say, for a week or multiple weeks, I don't think you want to exempt it just because it's a charitable event, it would have the same kind of impacts whether it's charitable or not. So this is, again, supposed to just really give a pretty narrow exclusion of, you know, a weekend or, you know, a day or a weekend or maybe a, you know, back-to-back Saturdays or something like that, otherwise it would still qualify.
So the difference would be if the event was more than 2 days, they would have to go and present that to the planning commission, zoning department, to get a permit.
Correct.
Yeah. If it's a conditional use in that district, or if it's not allowed, then they would have to go to the zoning hearing board for variance.
Okay. So the purpose of this being on the agenda tonight, this is just to advertise the public hearing?
Yeah, so both of these ordinances would be, they're required to follow the state process to adopt zoning amendment. So although we're setting a public hearing for July, it will still be referred to the planning commission for review and, you know, recommendation at their June meeting. And then the public hearing would take place in July. So it's sort of fast tracking it.
Is there a requirement number of days we have to
So we,
notice?
yes, we need to provide the county with a 45-day review window. So before we can adopt, so 30 days before we can have a public hearing, what I usually recommend is you just do 2 months out so that you can have a public hearing and adopt the same night. Internally, administration-wise, and myself, we didn't view this as very controversial item, especially in light of the sort of seemingly unanimous support to not include the types of events that were included last time around. So that's the reason why this one is here. We viewed it as being non-controversial. When we get to the next one, I'll explain why we're recommending fast tracking that one as well.
Okay, well, I I do have a comment on the next one, because as related to the fire department, we would like to see something as far as signage on properties where, there's solar power, batteries, possibly internal to the building and stuff like that.
So yeah, there are signage requirements in the draft that we have. It's a pretty extensive draft, but like I said, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and stick with the nonprofit, and then we can discuss the next one for a good time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to advertise a hearing for ordinance number 461 on July 16th, 2025 at 6:30? Any motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Holliday, second by Mr. Fleming, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. See? Okay, it's
I did.
authorization hearing advertisement ordinance number 462 solar farm regulation. An ordinance of Western Township, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending the Western Township zoning ordinance as codified in Part 2, Chapter 210, and the definitions 210-7, meaning of words of the Western Township Code of Ordinances to include solar energy related definitions, amending the use table in Part 2, Chapter 210, Article 5 zoning districts to include accessory solar energy systems as permitted accessory uses in all zoning districts in the township to include solar energy facilities and battery energy solar systems as conditional uses in the rural state zoning district in the township, amending Part 2, Chapter 210 to add new solar energy systems to include supplemental regulations for accessory solar energy systems as permitted accessory uses in all zoning districts in the township, and solar energy facilities and battery energy storage systems as conditional uses in the rural state zoning district in the township. Are there any questions regarding the ordinance?
All right, so
Let's read that again.
So the reason why we're recommending, again, I use the term fast track, is that right now the township has no regulations regarding even large scale solar farms. And we have some information that there may be some potential interest in some properties in West Deer for this type of use, and not, taking a position either for solar energy or against solar energy. Our concern was, again, the lack of any kind of regulations that would be protective of any nearby residents, would put items like decommissioning requirements and bonding, so that, and what we found, what personally in my experience has been, is that these tend to be very controversial uses, even though it seems like most people do support the use of solar energy. A lot of people support the use of renewable energy and solar energy. When you see, especially the larger scale, where it's maybe 100 acres, 50 acres, even 30 acres of these panels coming in, I've seen a lot of concern with nearby residents, issues like glare, environmental concerns related to the panels themselves. It tends to be pretty controversial, not dissimilar to some of the oil and gas hearings that I was after. So the reason this is written in what I would agree is a very restrictive way is we want to get something on the books as quickly as possible so that these restrictions are in place, with the idea that this can be revisited and more fully vetted. But while that vetting is happening, we're at least protected and have some regulations in place. So the way it is set up is, again, the solar farm use, the kind of what I just discussed, the multi-acre, panels that are used to generate and then transmit to the grid or to the system. Those commercial uses would be limited to just our district, the north portion of the township. Mr. Shook and Mr. Shoup and I sort of caucused on this and thought, at least based on the kind of wide open nature of that area, that is probably, it's sufficient to make it not exclusionary, so there's enough opportunity to do it there. And there's also, viable properties that this would work at. But it's also, sort of lit in this limited area, at least for the time being, so that it can be more fully vetted to determine if there are other appropriate areas within the township, that it should be expanded to, and, you know, maybe there's some additional restrictions, or maybe less restrictions that the board would want to explore at that time, but obviously, the major concern, and the reason why we didn't go planning commission, then a couple months there, then recommendation back here, then possible changes, then scheduling a public hearing, is during that multi-month period, the township would be potentially exposed to the use again, without having the regulations in place, so.
So we can do this and then send it to the planning commission for them to review it?
Yeah, see, the idea, just like the nonprofit recreation facility, this ordinance would go for a June, review by the planning commission and a recommendation either for or against a July public hearing, and then it could be an item for future discussion, assuming that the board will want to adopt it, get some regulations on the books, it can immediately then be, if the board wanted to, refer back to the planning commission for further vetting and further input for potential amendments.
So there was no intent to go around with the planning commission, it's just to protect us a little bit in the meantime.
That's the goal here.
Would we have the county report back by the time the public hearing occurs?
Yes. And I will tell you that we didn't create this one from scratch. This is a template. We started with a template ordinance that we've used actually in Washington County and a couple of more rural areas. So that, you know, this wasn't reinventing the wheel type of situation. We didn't want to, if it seems robust, it's not like, you know, we didn't create this robust of an ordinance just for Western Township. This is just what we started with, and then we had some back and forth with Mr. Shoup and Mr. Shook and Mr. Mayor, and sort of arrived at this, again, sort of template.
Do we have any other questions? Do I have a motion to advertise a hearing for ordinance number 462 on July 16th, 2025 at 6:30?
Give that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smolin, oh, sorry, motion by Mr. Fleming, second by Mr. Hollibaugh. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Authorization of hydrant locations for Oakmont Water. Attaches a map of potential fire hydrant locations by the township engineer, generated from fire company discussions. The Oakmont Water Authority will be providing cost estimates that will be distributed to the board prior to the meeting. Mr. Mayor.
As everybody saw on the agenda, there's a list of 6 different hydrants that were proposed from fire companies and reviewed by Mr. Shoup, the engineer. We were waiting for prices from Oakmont Water Authority, which is where the authority that covers these hydrants. And I just got those yesterday, and I told the board I'd let them know at the meeting what those prices are. Basically, for the 2 McCrowell Road hydrants, it would be $8,252.20 each. And then all the other hydrants, with the exception of hydrant number 2, which is Radar Drive, it would be $13,252.20. The Radar Drive is anywhere between the $8,200 and the $13,252.
What's the hydrant make, you know?
They use Mueller.
Mueller, okay. So,
$8,000 water, I didn't know you
$8,000 a piece, and that's from
Oakmont Water.
installed.
Yeah, didn't the price go down?
They were, this is a great gesture from Oakmont Water. Their board had met recently, and they decided that they were just gonna charge for the material costs, not labor. The reason why you have the difference between the $8,252 and the $13,000, that $5,000 difference, is those 3 hydrant locations are on state roads, and when it comes to state roads, they do have to charge because there's rehabilitation of the road. So and Radar Drive, they said anywhere between the $8,200 and the $13,200 because they don't know how extensive that is. That's something that they have to meet with Mr. Shoup about to see how much that excavation, backfilling, things like that would need to take place. So we have budgeted $45,000, so I already did math for everybody. And speaking with, I spoke with 2 of the chiefs, Mr. Wigan in his role as the chief of number 3, and Mr. Pretoro in his role as the chief of number 2. It seemed like everybody agreed on the location of Satchler Boulevard at the intersection of Fairford Road, and everybody could understand that because there's a couple businesses there, a lot of bang for the buck. The two on McCrell Road, I know that they both agree on hydrant number 3 on McCrell Road. Depending on the cost, hydrant number 4 was up in the air, but the fact that those two came in are on the same cost as the supervisors mentioned that they cost last year, I would assume that the board would want to do hydrant number 1, 3, and 4, which would come out to $29,756.60, which would allow the board to pick one of the other 3 from hydrant 2, 5, or 6 in your list. And speaking with both chiefs, Radar Drive has a lot of residents around. Bakerstown Road near the intersection with Deer Creek Road has best hire, and Deer Creek Road is more rural. So I don't know if that's when the board would want to push off until next year. But it's up to the board to decide right now, like which of the, if you want to go first of all with my recommendation and Mr. Shute, our recommendation, you go with 1, 3, and 4, and I'm going to add one of the others to 5 or 6.
Mr. Shute, could we not, we're getting the hydrants, we donated from Oakmore, or we buy them?
No, we buy them.
We buy the hydrants, okay, so we buy the hydrants. Could we put a small bid together for this, independent contractor?
I don't know what Oakmont's position would be on that.
I mean, they'd have to qualify with Oakmont, but I think you'd save
I
some money.
mean, I can tell you, just as it relates to McCrell specifically, our paving contractor is in town milling and soon to be paving. I've asked them to hold off McCrell to the end. In anticipation you might select 1 or 2 hydrants there. And talking to Oakmont Water, they indicated they can fast track that, but if we had to go get a third-party contractor for McCrell,
The prices are pretty good, Jeff. I think I remember them being close to $15,000. It's pretty cheap.
Good.
Do you have experience that it's cheaper somewhere else?
I mean, I'm putting in right now, and I wish I could get that kind of money. You know, I mean, it's just,
The discussion with Oakmont Water was as they install these hydrants on existing lines and valving would be needed, at their cost, they would put in the valving while they're installing the hydrants. And to my understanding, it was, time and material for them to do it.
well, standardly, a hydrant should come with 1 6-inch valve shutters though. That's it. And then however they wanna put a T in, or however they wanna make the tie in, that's it, on the other side. But that would be them to, if it was a private job, they'd have to do that anyway. So, like I said, it just, it's a lot of money. But if you need to get it done, you gotta get it done.
We were paying $15,000 per hydrant.
I'll give you my card.
When we were talking to Oakmont before, their plan was to replace the Saxonburg Boulevard water line from where they stopped near the school all the way down to the Indiana Township line.
Right.
Was there any update to their plans on that?
Yeah, both Mr. Shute and I asked Mr. McCaskey about that, and he said there's no immediate plan, no plans in the near future to extend that line. If there was, if they were, what Mr. Reed is saying is if they were going to extend the water line, just wait until they extend the water line because they put the hydrant in for us. So, because they're not doing it right away in the next couple of years at least, it probably makes the most sense to just put it in now then.
So my recommendation would be to do McCrell Road, the 2 hydrants, since we're paving that. I would hate to have to cut a road after we pave it. And then Saxonburg and Raygard. Raygard has access to a hydrant, but it's on the other side of East Union Road, so if we ever had a fire there, we would have to lay across East Union Road and close the road.
What was Anthony's recommendation?
Very similar because at the time, he mentioned Radar Drive. At the time, we thought we could only do like Saxonburg Boulevard, McCrell, and then one of the other 2, Radar or McCrell. Now we can do both.
So how many total are we trying to do?
We can do 4. We can do hydrants 1 through 4.
And they were discussing 5, so if to eliminate 1?
No, you don't have to. We have enough money to do hydrants 1 through 4.
Is that what you're recommending, Mr. Wigan, 1 through 4? Because I don't want to miss one you said, so.
That is correct, 1 through 4.
Okay, so you seem to be the expert on this one, so. Do I have a motion to authorize the installation of fire hydrants, which would be numbers 1 through 4, Saxon Boulevard, Briargard Drive, and 2 on McFarland Road?
I'll give that motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Fleming, seconded by Mr. Holliday, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Authorization purchase of public works trucks. The township votes for the purchase of the 2025 F600 chassis 4x4 SD regular cab 145 uplift package for the PA Coast Guard contract. The following quotes have been received for the F600 from Sells Ford, $69,724, from Laurel Ford, $70,515, and the following quotes have been received for the uplift package: U.S. Municipal, $46,423, Stevenson Equipment, $59,000. Are there any questions regarding the public works truck and uplift package? So the least expensive bid would be to purchase new public works trucks with upfit package to Subs Ford and U.S. Municipal in the amount of $116,000, $147,000. No.
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to make the purchase for the public works truck.
Second.
$116,147.
One truck.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, one truck.
One truck. Who motioned, I'm sorry, Mr. Can we not with comments, please?
Mr. Wigan with a motion and Mr. Holliday seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Authorization of promotion of police officer to sergeant. The board approved the promotion of third sergeant in the 2025 township budget. The board received the attached memorandum from Chief Roper recommending full-time police officer Thomas Truckeye to be promoted to the position of sergeant. Does anyone know this? TJ? No, Thomas or TJ?
TJ's what I'm most by, yeah.
It's TJ. It's TJ. I don't think we have any questions. We thank you for your service and for your service to fire departments. So do I have a motion to authorize the promotion of Thomas TJ Truckeye from full-time police officer to sergeant?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Holloway, second by Mr. Fleming. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Absolutely. So for everyone that doesn't know, my name is TJ Truckeye.
You've got a big, is that your family?
Yeah, I got a heck of a support system, friends, family, yeah, the whole shebang.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was raised in Russellton, lived here my whole life, lived in McGill, raising my family with my little beautiful baby and wife that you saw over there. I'm sure she made herself known. I'm really happy to be here. I've always knew I wanted to spend my career here, but working here full time just made me realize that even more. Thank you guys for always supporting us. Thanks to the community for always supporting us also. And special. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Present Officer Truckeye with the sergeant's badge.
Wait, I've got a view. Can you hold for just, I've got the view.
Oh, you want me to hold it, or you want him to hold
He's got it here.
it? All right, I'll hold it for a second.
And this family will be in the background. Mom and baby, you want to go up here? I don't know their names, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Josh. I learned this one. See, mine's right. You want to hold it? Yeah, you hold it, sweetheart.
So this is oh, okay, Mom. She's gracious to back in post.
It's like a medal.
And then Mom and Dad, you want to get in there, we'll take your pictures.
Go ahead, grab it. I cleaned it. That's not the worst, not the worst.
I want Joey.
Can we get the Truckeye family in here for a picture real quick?
I don't know if they'll fit.
How about just immediate?
Yeah. Thank you.
Immediate with your brother? Is that all there is your brother?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know your.
yeah, that's Joey. That's my brother,
I mean,
Joey.
you can obviously tell he's your brother, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we know from the garage. All right, perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you not gonna stay for the rest of this one? You're gonna leave?
I'll stay.
This is fun.
I'm still resident. Yeah, I'll stay.
No, I'm just kidding. It's all right.
Little number was that? No, I don't.
All right, item number 23, authorization ratification of electricity rate plan agreement. Is the township's electricity rate plan agreement with Constellation is expiring this year? The township manager has been negotiating a successor agreement. Since prices are volatile and rising regularly, the manager had to take early action to lock in rates. A copy of the agreement will be distributed to the board, which we have here. Everyone has their copy in front of them?
No, that's not it. It's actually in your folders on your iPads under the meeting supporting documents.
Was it the Lowe's?
It is, to give details, because the nice thing that Mrs. Jordan's gonna read is Mr. Mayor ... What this is, we negotiate our electric deal because we're a municipality, and we include the fire companies, EMS, everybody can do to help out because we get a lower rate than residents do. So it is extremely volatile. The rates actually have gone up just overnight, and it did, where it said the manager had to take early action to lock the rates. The last one was locked in today. Because I'm sure everybody knows, but on June 1st, everybody's rates are gonna go up, all of ours, and pretty substantially. So the rates to compare for the township were up around 12 cents per kilowatt hour. And the one, West Penn Power, which always comes in lower, we got 0.889 cents instead of 12 cents, and the Duquesne Light is about 10.6 cents per hour, per kilowatt hour. And that's gonna be locked in for 3 years, so we're safe for 3 years. And again, the electric prices are going through the roof. Expect, warning to everybody's residents, if you can lock in a lower rate now, lock in a lower rate now, because as of June 1st, it's gonna go up 2 cents. So, that's what we do. We do that every 3 years, and our agreement's actually up in July, so to beat that increase before getting too close to it. I recommend we lock it now, so I sign that agreement and just need the board to ratify that action.
Deputy, why don't you go celebrate with your crew out there?
Really gonna call me out like that?
I am.
I was gonna say, I'll come back.
I'll come back. That's okay.
Daniel, question.
They don't want me out there, yeah, sure.
Does the fire departments in the senior center still get a discounted rate?
They do, we put them on the same agreement. So all the different payees, they know that. They still allow everybody to join them, like we've done before with the oil and gas, gas and the electric.
So fire and senior center on one plan, and then township and any other?
No, all the Duquesne Light accounts are in one, and the West Penn Power in the other. So if, like you have Duquesne Light number 3, EMS is Duquesne Light, here's Duquesne Light. Number 1 is West Penn Power, First Energy.
Do I have a motion to ratify the the action of township manager to enter an electricity rate plan agreement with Constellation New Energy Inc. as presented?
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Holliday, second by Mr. Fleming, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Award for the EMS roof specifications and bid documents were prepared by Shoup Engineering for the replacement of the EMS roof. The project was advertised and sealed bids were received until 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, at which time they were opened and read aloud in public. The bid tabulation is attached. It was really reading. It's not different in here than it does in the lawyer. Wasn't sure what that was. Are there any questions regarding the EMS roof, or Chief, do you have any, Chief, do you have anything to add? No. Do I have a motion to award the EMS roof to TRS Roofing in the amount of $46,300?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hollabaugh, seconded by Mr. Wiggin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That was a lot cheaper than the first numbers we were getting, correct?
It did. I was surprised. We were all pleasantly surprised. Mr. Shoup, I mentioned, and Mr. Rob.
Is it over 60?
Yes, some of the bids, I keep looking over there because I'm over there. The bids are usually around, what, they're between 55, 65, 70. And yeah.
Last month when we talked about that, I thought they were up there too. Somebody stopped the price for you, somebody came in for you.
As it's pouring down rain.
And to let everybody know too, the roofer that's the lowest bidder also can start next week. So Mr. Hughes and I spoke about that.
One more rainstorm for those buckets.
Award of sale of public works truck. The board authorized the advertisement of the sale of the following public works truck, 2015 F555 ton dump truck with a Western plow. The public works truck was placed on municipal bid for sale. Final bid was received from Lexi, in the amount of $30,100. Are there any questions regarding the sale of the public works truck? Do I have a motion to award that sale of the 2015 555 ton dump truck with plow in as-is condition to August Alexi in the amount of $30,100?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Mr. Hollibaugh, second by Mr. Fleming, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So that $100,000 truck just came selling, you did pretty good on the bid. $30,000 for the truck. It's good.
You guys get a better check price than the regular public, that's for sure.
With the
Municipal bid's working out for us. A lot
Yeah,
better.
they're-
Even to buy them, that's a lot cheaper than.
yeah, buying because we're part of the collective bargaining agreement. We're part of the collective bidding agreement, like this is CoStar's price. Sometimes you get it through the calls, but those prices are always cheaper because they go along together. So,
Truck prices are through the roof right now.
Okay, so discussion item for building inspection, I think that was maybe you should maybe say building inspector or whatever, maybe we could change that a little bit. Mr. Hollibaugh, you
Yeah.
had some questions?
I just wanted to put that on the agenda for next month as far as building inspection. I just wanted Mr. Mayor to do a little research on, everybody knows I'm building a building right now, and I just paid $12,500 for a building permit. I think that's a lot of money, and maybe it's not, maybe I'm imagining that, but it seems like a lot of money for what it is. I'd like to research that with some other firms that we could maybe check their prices. Also, I'd also like to maybe think about putting somebody in-house that's qualified to do both commercial and residential. I know we tried this once in the past.
Twice, 3 times, yeah.
Well, maybe we could do a little research on that as well. If we have to advertise, I'm not saying we should do that tomorrow, but let's look into that a little bit more. If we could put somebody in there, I know what these firms stand to gain whenever we do a big housing plan like that, and how much money they're collecting.
We've got a big one for the golf course.
Yep. So, Danny, can you look into that a little bit? Mr. Mayor?
Discussion of yearly youth softball electric at Fairford Park. Mr. Mayor, you and I met with softball, but could you take this one from here?
sure. As Mrs. Jordan mentioned, we met with Deer Lakes Youth Softball. What they're trying to do, for everybody's familiar with Fairford Park, there are 2 ball fields right above the pavilion, that's B6 and B7, and they would like to have lights up there. In order to have lights up there, they have to run electric. And we've worked with them probably past 2 or 3 years at least, trying to get that electric up there, because to get it up there, you have to go around the building. And when we had to excavate right in front of the pavilion, we're in between the pavilion and B1 ball field, that is a mess. There's conduits going everywhere, not just electrical, you have electrical, gas, water, sewer. And to get electric there was nearly impossible. So we met with Duque and Light. Duque and Light gave us a route that actually goes farther back, almost to Maple, farther down Maple, that will go up the hill instead of around the pavilion. It's going to go right through the field. There's a cost of doing that around $33,000 that Duque and Light was going to charge, and that's for their part of the work. Our guys will trench it, our public works guys will trench and lay a conduit. Duque and Light will do the rest and put 2 pads in. We were planning on doing that next year, but Duque and Light they're so backlogged that we want to get started this year. And the only way to do that, because we didn't budget for it or anything, was to kind of like reverse the program where Deer Lake Youth Softball would pay to run the line, the $33,000. And I said to Deer Lake Youth Softball, maybe that gives us some time to get some grants for them to filter costs, so we help out more with lighting it.
They got a grant.
Didn't they just get a grant as well?
They did, but they still need more additional funding.
That grant, I believe when we met with them, I think that grant was timed out too, if we had to do that in order for them to receive it. Wasn't there a timeline on that we were trying to meet as well?
I don't know about that, but I do know that you don't want to wait until next year to do that, because we'd be talking 2027.
In the meeting, he was stressing the urgency of the timing with his grant as well, so anything we can do to help them.
Yeah, so I totally recommend that the board give me the authorization, give them the okay to run that line, because that's all they're doing. They're absorbing the cost of running the line and putting those two pads in.
So our public works guys would do all that?
Yeah, they would transfer, obviously Duke and I would lay the two pads and run the wire.
How much time would our public works guy have in that?
Not much, they're good, they can work through that in no time.
That'd be really helpful too, if community is successful this year with the lighting up there, that would certainly help, so it's a good one, Mike. Any questions? Discussion of live streaming of meetings, Mr. Mayor.
This has been an ongoing discussion. I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did get all the, we were getting a lot closer with this. I mentioned a couple months ago that I'd have to reach out to Verizon, who's our AV company, because I mentioned we have the camera there, but that camera does not go outside this building. In order to get that camera to be connected to the internet and be able to broadcast outside, we have to get what's called a under-table rack mount bridge. And I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. The dual recording H264 streaming media processor. And what that will do is it gets the access, but it also records everything. So it has, I don't know the exact, it's Nextron, that's the model name, but it has a lot of storage capability, and I believe the reps should give us at least 2 months of storage. Well, what we can do, we don't need 2 months of storage necessarily, because this is the way we're envisioning it happening. Horizon came out and met with me and the chief. Here's what we would do, we get that. You can't use an iPad or a tablet because the processor doesn't connect with these things. We tried it. So we'd have to get a laptop computer. That module, which is about $5,400, new laptop, and then the bridge under table rack mount is this thing right here. That they're going to move instead of here where everybody can kick it, because that's an actually expensive piece of equipment. They're going to mount it in the room, and so all this cost together is probably around $8,000. And then I also calculated, it was on a different sheet. What we were talking about doing is how he said what he sees most of his clients do is they run Zoom. And they either use Zoom like meetings or they use Zoom webinars. And what happens is the camera connects to the entire system. You record it through Zoom using a laptop. We could use a system kind of like what we mentioned Richland uses, where people register for that during the meeting, so they get a live feed. Anybody who registers gets a live feed during the meeting. That's the live streaming aspect of it. And then that device in the AV closet stores all that, and the very next day, Mr. Shook could take that entire video, put it on our website. That's what I'm saying, you don't necessarily need all that storage space because we'll store it on our website.
So we would get rid of all the transcripts?
Yeah, there wouldn't be a need for them, and that's we pay for that. There's a lot more work for Mrs. French to go through.
But at the time, that was requested of us as well.
It was,
So
and
it could be a wash, it could save us some money in the future.
a little bit. We don't pay that much for that service, but it is.
Eventually we'll pay,
Yeah.
help us pay for it.
And as it was mentioned a couple months ago by a couple of the residents, like we have to put that disclaimer on our website saying this is not fully accurate, because it isn't. The minutes are, but the transcripts aren't, because I'm telling you, and I've said this before, in a jokey way but also serious, that if you would see what the transcription comes back with sometimes, things that are sexual in nature, I mean, because especially names, when people say their names, you don't, it takes her a lot of time to go through that and try cleaning it up, and that's all she does is clean it up, but it still doesn't mean it's accurate. So, that's what we would be able to do, and so that provides anybody who would register. We talk about homebound people, if somebody's homebound, not able to come to the meeting, but they would like to watch it, they would be able to do that.
So they would make it so that they would have to register. We would know who's
Right.
in the room as well.
Because what would happen, what Richland does is people have to request by 4 o'clock the day of the meeting, and they're sent the code to get into the Zoom meeting, or the Zoom webinar.
Is that an automatic thing? That's not something someone has to do?
No, I'd have to do it, but I just, yeah. So,
I support it as well, but I think that we should make it mandatory that we absolutely, everybody has to sign in.
is that more, Mr. Rhodes, is that more of a policy issue, or is that something you don't need a policy for?
I mean, I think if you can get consensus or at least a majority, I think you just set it up that way without having to, the formality of written policy, because there's not that much else that we need to really establish, aside from how people are gonna access it, so, I think it'd be more informal.
So this is discussion, and that's what I found, any feedback?
I guess we would just have to put on the agenda and vote how we want it next month.
Right, you'd have to authorize the purchase of the equipment,
And how we,
and then, but I think you could, share right now with Mr. Mader, what it is that, how it is that you want this to operate.
I'm in favor of the Zoom and with.
So let me ask this to the board right now. Is everybody okay with getting the hardware necessary to do this, no matter what we do?
What was the cost you got?
Probably about $8,000 tops. It's going to put us over the line item budget for our administrative hardware, but we can do that. That's what your budgets are, a living, breathing document.
The cameras we have now, are they up and running?
Yeah, it is right now. Like I mentioned to the public a couple months ago, if I turn that thing on, which I could do right now, and if I turn both these monitors on, all the people would see is exactly what they're seeing right now.
Right.
It would just show us, which is what everybody out there gets to see right now. So that can't get outside this building.
Understand.
That's what that piece of equipment is needed for.
And then you included a Zoom webinar subscription, did you get a quote for that?
I'm sorry, thanks for, the Zoom is, we have to go pro, and that's $160 a year. If we were to go to the webinar, about that $690 a year, which would be $850 a year total for the Zoom, to have the Zoom. And then,
My only concern, I know someone said some people can't read, but I know that there's a lot of older folks that can't get around very well, but they also don't have internet. So now just so we know, there's gonna be no other way for them to.
right. And I've spoken to some residents about this too, because this is obviously a topic that's been coming up a lot. And I've been a manager, probably not for 20 years, and I've never had anybody contact me and say, really would like to come to the meeting, but I'm not able to. Because I'm telling you right now, if somebody would have done that, we would try to accommodate them. That's just how we are. We try as much as we can to help the people out. But like like we said, we have the camera, we have $8,000 and we're up and running. But there's,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I will say that, if you do have folks with just a landline, obviously you still need to find a way to communicate with them, but Zoom does have a feature, just you can call and listen on a smartphone or something.
right.
So even those folks who don't have internet, of course, you need to get them the password somehow so they could, punch it in on their phone, but that'd be an option. Okay.
Used to using my electronics.
Okay, all right.
I never brought you.
And they require you to pre-register and sharing the password only upon request also eliminates or at least severely mitigates the possibility of like the Zoom bombing that was happening for a while, where if you just post it, people just pop in. Also using a webinar program rather than just your standard Zoom also restricts the ability for someone to come in and disrupt the meeting.
And we also discussed before, and it's a very real problem, like so when I researched this nationwide, a lot of people are intimidated, being known that they're on camera, and I think I thought this is where you're going when you said mitigate. I think it mitigates a lot of that fear when people think maybe just 2 or 3 people are watching them instead of the entire world. Now, when you broadcast it after the meeting, I don't know, but I don't think that affects people as much as real time. That's just my personal.
I think it's only important that the residents of West Deer have the opportunity to watch. I don't think the rest of the world needs to watch it anyway.
Well, it would be on the website,
Mhm.
so anybody in the world could see it technically.
But only after the fact.
Right, exactly.
And the
So
reason
that
why
if
we
there
put
was
it
somebody
on,
that was intimidated to come up to the microphone, I think that would already be over.
right, that's my point.
So I think Mr. Brennan in February brought this up, and here we are in May, where some of the delay was getting the cost.
Right.
So, I know people want things instantaneously, but it's government, it's process, so if we put that on the agenda for next week, are we all in agreements?
I think it's important we do it just so people can get an active, an active viewing of the meeting, just so people couldn't film the meeting and then do their voice and do their other things. I think it's important that we.
And that's the important part of putting on our website as opposed to, one thing a lot of people mention is, why don't you use Facebook Live, why don't you use YouTube? Whatever research is it, you lose control of that whenever you post that there. So if we put it on our website, and that's what everybody wants transparency, they want the accessibility to everybody to see it, they can see that on our website. And anybody who wanted to post a link to our website, they could do that.
So I think it's important to mention that we talked about this last month when we were 0.01% of the public is looking at our agenda and looking at our transcript. So hopefully, this is what, we got about 30 emails, hopefully that's what they want, and this is a good investment for that.
Can I just make a comment? If we use Zoom, you, the host, can turn off the microphones and cameras for the guests in the room, correct?
Yeah, but what I'm actually leaning toward, and this is what I mentioned in the webinar. The webinar is basically they get to watch you, like watch the meeting, so they see exactly what's on the camera. So there's no turning off. They're watching.
Okay, but like, I guess my recommendation would be if somebody wanted to make a registered comment via Zoom, then they would do that by 4 o'clock the day of, but I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna do a back and forth, it's just for them to listen, we're not gonna interact with people from there. I don't think that's the plan.
Yeah, that's.
Am I correct? Like, interact, like stopping and answering and letting them comment in? I don't know how that works.
I didn't give that much thought, but I think if they wanted to make a public comment in the beginning, they probably could. If they're not.
Well, not if you're using the webinar version, you would not be able to do that. So webinar is just gonna be a one-way street. People get to watch from, as long as they pre-register.
Because there's always a way to email, if you have a question, we want to make a statement that Mr. Maynard could read, am I correct?
Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, again, that is more of a kind of a policy or practical kind of application issue. I mean, do you want to let any resident, send emails in and Mr. Mayor has to read them at the beginning of the meeting as public comment, or, is this purely just the ability of those folks who can't make it in to view, the actual proceedings? Again, that's a policy decision. Again, it doesn't have to be a formally adopted policy, but, if it's a close, you might have to vote on.
Do we have to work out the kinks tonight?
No. I think, getting the hardware, kind of set up to be ordered and authorized, and then, I think you're gonna have some flexibility on your subscription, so I think it may be a month or two before you're actually fully up and running. And that would give you the time to iron out these sorts of details.
Because one thing I don't want is Mr. Maynard be constantly doing that when he, when we're talking about, he's gotta write down all these things we're asking him to do, and so are you, so I don't wanna be focused purely on, raising hands, or
And I'm gonna
there has to be order, just like there's order here.
I'd reiterate what I said last year. I believe Mr. Rarick asked the question last year, it was probably around March or something. Hey, if we have questions, how do we bring this up to the board? And my answer then is still the same as what I'm going to say right now. We're here we're here 5 days of the week, and people don't always have to wait until meetings to ask questions. They can ask the questions of the administration. If we don't have the answers, or if it's something the board needs to address, by all means come to the meeting. But a lot of those questions that people are going to be asking can be addressed throughout the month. And that's what we're here for. That's what we get paid to do. And we welcome those comments from the public. comments, questions, or whatever, because a lot of this can be answered before meetings. People don't have to wait. The example I gave Mr. Rarick last year is, you know, you have some people who have a pothole or something that needs fixed. Why are you gonna, say for example, the meeting's three weeks away. Why are you gonna wait 3 weeks to come tell the board, and the board looks at me and says, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Shute, can you please take care of this, as opposed to just calling at that moment and getting it taken care of right then and there, because that's what we do. And if people aren't happy with the response the administration, the police, public works give, then by all means, you know, come and tell the board we didn't do what we were supposed to do. That's what we're here for. And I think by, you know, I agree with what Mr. Rob is saying, by just having comments, as nice as it may sound, comments that, you know, by email or anything before the meeting starts, a lot of those things can be addressed, like, anytime during the month.
I think it's important to add that we can't just talk about these things in between a meeting. We have to do this together and approve this together. We can't just have this because of the Sunshine Act, right? We can't just make these decisions. Why didn't you get it done already? Well, we have to wait till we're together and have four.
So, in the new amendment to the Sunshine Act, this is a sort of example of how it ties your hands. But I certainly understand that, you know, we want the public to know before you take action, but, you know, in the old days, like 2 years ago, you could have just said, all right, I make a motion to authorize this purchase, and now, you know, we're 30 days before we can do that, because you have to post that in advance, so.
So that's why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? You're refusing to do it. No, we're not. There's a process that we have to follow. So we're all okay with him going forward, so
Yeah, I
just.
just had a question on the two different Zoom. The webinar is 600, the Pro is 160. Is there an amount of users for the Pro?
There is, but I believe it was, it's like 300. It's crazy. I mean, it's something we're never going to.
What would you recommend, the Pro or the webinar?
Pro. When we use Zoom before, we use Pro. I'm sorry, in order to have the webinar, you have to have the Pro. The webinar is an add-on. So I'm sorry, I thought you were saying Pro or regular. But no, we would go with the Pro. You have to go with the Pro just to have Zoom, which is $160, and the $690 is the webinar. And that all comes, whether or not we go webinar or meetings, depends on what the board decides ultimately with the back and forth.
For the meetings, if you open the meetings up, and if you have 45 people, you got 45 people in your meeting.
Yeah.
And then they can talk, they can comment, they can do whatever they want to do. But the aspect is, people leave their mics on, things like that happen. You know, you gotta be careful.
I think the host would mute them
Yeah,
and
well, yeah.
shut their cameras off, because when he mentioned about the bombing on a Zoom meeting, you know, if you leave that open, somebody screams profanities and turns on their mic, or, you know.
Well, they got a deaden their mic. He could deaden the whole thing, but the aspect is, anytime he wanted to show something, especially if you're doing something, and he has to open it up again, and it's live again. That's where it is.
Yeah, but the webinar does not.
Yeah, webinar is not, they just see us, that's it.
Right. They see and hear us.
So those are the discussion points. Yeah, the webinar, or what are we gonna do?
Okay. Discussion, use of municipal property, Western Dog Shelter. So, we met with myself, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Holborn, met with, no, we met together, looked at our map and tried to come up with another plan for the dog shelter. So I called Mr. Knighty, who's the president of the board, Dearborn School Board. We asked, so before we were told no, we don't want anything to do with swapping property, selling property, and I said, look, we just have 80 feet by 100 feet. Will you consider giving us just a little bit to make this over adjacent to the EMS loan? He said that he would take that to his board. He thought that that might work. We're also asking for a right-of-way because there's property in the back here that we are pretty much landlocked out. We can't use a lot of our property, the tabletop property that we just can't get to because we have to cross their property. So with all of that being said, we were going to meet this month, but they moved their meeting because of the election. So they would like us to come to their meeting on June 2nd. I understand if you may not, but if you can, June 2nd, to the school board meeting for us to give a presentation, an actual presentation, just talking about it, where you can show them the map, and Mr. Mayor said you're already working on that, so hopefully that day works for you too.
Sure.
So it'll be at the high school, presenting myself, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hollabaugh.
The map is actually, Mr. Shute handed out copies to all board members.
Yeah,
Tonight.
okay. So we'll have this as a presentation on the form of PowerPoint, some way to pretend that they know nothing so that we can get them up to speed on what it is we're looking for.
Sure,
so.
sure.
And then also, same conversation, I thought I would add that, they were asked to donate as well to the DLR, Dear Legs Organization, CDC, and they are not permitted to do that, so the answer from the school district is no, they will not be contributing any funds. Their solicitor advised them that they are not permitted to do that, so. We may be in a similar vote, but I wanted to just pass that on, that was my follow-up with the school board.
Back to the agenda item on the dog shelter. This flat area is at the bottom base of the hillside that's currently there by the dog shelter,
Would it help when we put it up on
Or-
screen?
Yeah.
by the salt shed.
It's down below, it's down with the same level as gas pumps.
So this basically is the old.
And that's school district property,
Yes.
and we're asking them to give us just a right of way, or to give us that corner where the building's gonna go.
That's
Sorry,
our
sorry,
section.
wait, but we
It's,
can take the corner.
if you, Susan, yeah, it's up now. If, there's two potential areas for the dog shelter, to be moved. It's one's above the EMS, but they would have to give us that little square of 100 feet by 100 feet. I don't have a pointer function right now, but
So it's up here, right? Am I looking at this correctly, right here?
that's where
Yeah,
you
you
got
got
it.
it.
Right. And then if you follow that road at the top where you see the, pinkish, plus check mark, that road, you see a second area, that's potential dog shelter area number 2. So the school district would have to give us either piece of property. They seem very reluctant to give us part above the EMS building, because they're planning on using that area for future expansion. But especially if we have the road there, they can expand, and from what I understand, they seem to be amenable to the public road / right of way. That would, if they give us that area that's neat over the hill from the salt shed, that might be a prime location for a dog shelter, because you have all the utilities already from public works garage, all of the electric, gas, sewage, and water. And that's why the first location above the EMS, you have the same thing, you have all the utilities. All the other locations, we look to possibly move it. There's not easy accessibility when it comes to sanitary sewer. And then where it currently exists, there is no sanitary sewer, so that's a problem too, we'd have to actually cross that road.
So we also talked about what we call West Deer Road, this road that's on the other side of the municipal building, that they use, but it's not a road, it's not a public road, so we can make that, so we can make that a public road so that in the future you can't be cut off from it. It can be an actual road that the school buses will use, that will maintain, pave, and it would be beneficial to both of us, so that somewhere down the road, a board can't say, nope, you can't use that cut through anymore, so it's kind of a give and a take kind of scenario, because they use that road a lot.
They stand to benefit from that too. I think we need to just explain that to them, and that's.
Yeah, I explained that to Larry, and I think we're going to work that into our presentation.
And like I mentioned, the school district talks about future expansions, and you can see the building right on the bend. That's our public works garage. Our public works garage is on, most people know this, it's on school district property. So what we're saying to do is if all this area up here, that's all of our land to the right of that property line. And all that area that's marked with the pinkish color by Mr. Shute, that area is usable. I mean, so if we wanted to build a new public works garage in the future and get off of their property, because I believe we only have 4 years left in our lease, with the school district.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to explain that there was a 100-year lease.
No, 20-year.
20-year lease.
20-year lease.
Started out to be some crazy number and they just never, and now it's up in 4 years.
Yeah.
So we basically have 4 years to get off the property.
Yeah, we did that my first year here because the school district was talking about kicking us out of that and using that garage, and public works don't have any place to be. So, but as, I'm sorry, I heard people talking about landlocked and who made the comment, but that is landlocked. You can't get to it from our property. You can see the gradients. It's very steep. Mr. Wig and Mr. Shoup and I were out there looking at it. It's extremely steep. You have to seriously build a bridge to get over that. But instead, if they just gave us that right of way, gave us that little piece of land, it gives us the access that we need to get out there and actually do something for it in the future.
When you say give, you're talking purchase.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it could be transferring property, swapping property, selling property. So no, it's not just here you go, here's an acre of land. Thank you, Mr. Shoup.
So if we take utilities from the school district property, they're gonna have to give us right of ways for all the utilities, right?
Most likely, yes, Mr. Shoup, right?
Well, I mean, we can get water and sewer back to this back facility via West Deer Street. But we're back into the grind pump and so forth, if we go that route. Or the other option would be to negotiate with the school district to utilize through their property, or into their property.
The solid black line, you would be relining West Street?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah, a little bit. For the most part, you almost have to keep it where it is, because once you get up past the salt storage building, there's a steep decline back there.
I'm talking about down low where the EMS building is. You have it coming right across the front of the garage doors.
Well, I'm showing 40-foot right of way. I mean, that could be a 33-foot right of way, but for it to be a public right of way, I think at a minimum it needs to be a 33-foot right of way. Yeah, I can shrink that some, Josh.
Bill, do you have any comment on option one?
Not currently.
Not currently, you don't have a comment?
No, this Mr. Mayor and I talked about it yesterday, and we discussed several options, so I just wanted to see what direction it went.
I don't think that right away is interfering with their front concrete slab or anything.
No, I mean, it's gonna be maintained by the township, so I mean.
I think it's all premature until we figure out the way the school district's gonna go, because if
Correct.
they don't wanna play, then this whole thing's scrapped, so.
Well, they didn't say no.
Wait.
So I think it's important we show up.
That's where we're going.
That's what I said, it's important we go, because
Comment?
They didn't say yes, but they didn't say no.
Scott, when we were up there, me, you, and Daniel, and the road that goes across in front of the salt shed, if we can't access our land from that flat spot out there because it's too steep, could that not be an option for the dog shelter as well? And then your utilities would run back towards West Street.
You're saying we're looking here to the right of the salt storage building?
Yes.
Is that where all the millings are?
Yes.
Currently?
Possibly, I mean, you are starting to get into some fill material over that direction. We probably need to look at the soils a little closer, see what we're building on. You know,
Right.
over there.
we looked at that the wooded lot to the right of the salt shed, or the flat area.
The flat area to the right.
I think that's still cutting into some property that could be valuable to us later in the future.
So we're still just,
Yeah.
we can't move forward till we see the school, and then we have to figure out what we're doing, or we get the whole thing, so, Any new business?
So I was in talks with Mrs. Stark, and she said that the microphone we typically use for the parade is damaged or needs to be replaced.
Yeah, that's something Bobby will handle, we kinda do that through the parks. She just has to ask, she has the budget for it, it doesn't have to be a board item.
Okay, and then the concrete next door, did we have any options for that? I walked over there right before the meeting. You know, there's, number of conduits, an exposed open block in there, and we have the Memorial Day ride coming here. Is that the monument that's there, or is the monument been removed?
The monument's gonna be put back. Our guys are gonna do exactly what you're talking about. They're gonna tidy up that area, any conduits that they see, anything that's dangerous. And then they're gonna put the bell back. They actually were working on that today. They're pressure washing and painting. They're pressure washing the bell, brass, so it's a brass bell. And they're painting, he said, got a battleship gray that stands for it.
Okay. So the other piece will be in place for their Memorial Day visit?
Yep.
And I don't know if we can do anything with, if we're not gonna cover that over there with grass and seed, there's still exposed VCT tile that wasn't removed. It's not
Our
just,
guys are gonna clean that up.
it's not just a clean pad.
Right. Yeah, there's actually a lot, we walked, Mr. Shoup and I walked that, as part of the agreement with Delaware Construction, and this is in my report, but, we were taking on, in return for the $3,000, we're gonna take care of, fixing everything else over there, our public works guys. So that means, you're right, the VCT tiles there, some of the foundation blocks are still there, definitely some conduit, the piping, things like that. But our guys are capable of doing that.
They're gonna return some of the money?
$3,000.
They already did, yes.
So if they,
They
once
were
they,
at $750, they negotiated that back to the $3,000 we thought was fair, so that was good.
I still think it's gonna be more than $3,000 to get rid of that if we decide to. But once they get rid of that block that's below the concrete, they're gonna regrout and bring that up to level.
I mean, for a temporary basis, where the block is, I think you could just put some sand in there, just to get it back, just to prevent a tripping hazard for right the moment, until you ultimately decide what's gonna be done over there.
Could we get an estimate from one of the paving companies that's doing one of the local roads to possibly throw 2 inches of binder over top of that whole area?
Oh, that milling up there,
Not a bad idea either.
roll it in with a roller.
Mhm.
So again,
I mean, I could talk to the paving company, that's in town, well, soon to be in town, yeah.
Just a question, Scott, on what Daniel had in his report and what you had said earlier. Are we going to look for bids for McIntyre, or are we going to do a more permanent solution to some of those potholes on top of potholes? Until we get to paving it?
Well, I mean, the adding it would take board action. I mean, I would have to negotiate a change order with the contractor, which I could do in fairly short order if that's the route you wanna go. And there would need to at least be a ratification by the board, to do something like that. The other option would be to do some mill and patch work. And that could be done with Public Works. It's still an interim fix, but it, would help make the situation better than it is, until we get it perhaps on the schedule next year, on the public bid side, or the following year, whenever. So, I mean, there's some flexibility, I mean.
Well, I'd be open to looking at options, or open it up to the other board members for options. I believe we have about $100,000 left in the road budget.
yeah, technically. So Mr. Shoup, you just want to get those, reach out to them and see.
I can reach out to them and, see, perhaps just doing from this road to that road, or doing from Richland Township line up to this road. And-
Yeah, I drove that myself, and I noticed there's one bad patch, but after you get past that bad patch, it's pretty smooth sailing.
I mean, before the township did the initial patching, it was just a pothole, small potholes, but there was pothole. At least now it's drivable, But yeah, I can get some options.
I'll do announcements. So the Memorial Day schedule is Monday, May 26, 2025, 8:30 a.m. Bedford World War II Memorial, 9 o'clock a.m. Western Township Municipal Building Memorial, 9:30 a.m. Rural Ridge Volunteer Fire Department, 10:15 a.m. East Deer Township Memorial, 11 a.m. Indiana Township Memorial, 11:45 Lakewood Memorial Gardens, at 12:30 p.m. the W.D. William Fish American Legion Post 356. Services are conducted by the veterans of West Deer Legion and Sons of the American Legion. West Deer Legion's Ladies Auxiliary will be serving lunch after the 12:30 p.m. service. All are welcome to attend. During the luncheon, the following scholarships will be awarded, which is the Jane Worcester Deaconess Legion Scholarship.
I didn't realize Memorial Day was Monday. Are we gonna get that, are the guys gonna get that done between now and then?
Yeah, that's what they asked to, but they've been working, that's what they did today. They're working on it in the garage.
Keep no more storms.
Yeah.
Okay, public could comment on non-agenda matters. The board will hear comment on non-agenda related items. Gentlemen, township concern, please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and make your comments 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, my name's David Harrison, Middle Road Extension. And I just wanted to follow up on what Chief Loper said about the efforts that the township put in. Even though their hands were tied, I mean, we had no power for 8 days because the wires were wrapped around multiple trees. But I also wanted to thank the police, the first responders, the staff for a great idea about the dumpster, for bringing all of the rotten food that we all had. So I just wanted to commend you guys for doing that, doing the best you could under those conditions.
Appreciate it. There was people that were at 10 days, so you kind of lucked out.
Hi, Robert Wazork, 3560 Hunter Town Road. We'd just like to know where we...
Could you say your last name again?
Wazork.
Okay.
Where we stand on 3562 Hunter Town Road, the William Breyer residence.
Do you want to talk about that? Or can you? Yeah.
So, one of the conditions, if you remember from last month that the board set, was that a signed sales agreement had to be received by tonight. We are in receipt of that. They do have a buyer. Closing is scheduled for next Friday, May 30th. And the buyer actually has already wired the money to the closing company. They're holding it in escrow. So it seems like it's going to be a done deal. I actually had a phone call with the realtor today, and she caught me up to speed on everything. So up to this point, all the conditions have been met. The buyer is also aware that within the closing, he has 2 weeks to meet with Mr. Mader to go over the conditions of restoring the house, setting a timeline, and that has to be approved by Mr. Mader. So we're on schedule.
I appreciate everything that the board has done. I mean, it's been like 3 years and 4 months or something, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Any other comments?
Oops, go ahead.
Mary Calavoda, Crystal Spring Court. I want to follow up on the McIntyre Road issue. I know Mr. Shoup had inspected the area around Allison, but there is another large area which needs your attention. And that is the area would be east of High Tire Farms and where it comes out to Shadow Court. And that whole, about a block below that, is in really bad shape. It has been patched upon patched upon patched. Another area of issue is the old county bridge down over Deer Creek. At some points, before they have patched it, you could actually see the base of it. So those two places really do need, with all the truck traffic over there, they really do need attention, and I wonder if Mr. Shoup could go and look at those places also. The other thing that is an issue is a lot of people from West Deer come out and walk on those blocks. That block east of Shadow Court has a lot of ground on the curbs, and it also has a lot of pieces of wood there at times, and also it has a lot of growth over that. Why should you care about that? Because a lot of people walk there, and there is 2 reasons. There's nowhere for anybody to get off in some points in time. And also, cars will come down the road and they will move over when another car is coming. So, that could be an issue. So, if you could look at both of those things. Now, somebody from the township nicely came out and they mowed along the sides, but that doesn't take the problem away on the curbs. So if someone could look into that, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Rich Alba, Bakersfield, Comerville Road. Daniel, in regards to the public works expansion, dog shelter, things like that, was there ever a master plan done when this building was being designed? A master site plan
Of this building?
of this entire site while this building was being designed?
There was in the past, where there
I'm
was.
just wondering why we're talking about now, why wasn't it resolved 2 years ago when this building was being designed and laid out on this site?
There was, originally with the old building. Not that building, there was another plan for
This building, with this building right now,
Right.
what designs were done with the dog
The only
shelter?
thing that was designed with that was the public works area. There's supposed to be a driveway going up to the top. That's why it's designed the way it is. The driveway can be cut up right through to the back of the parking
Why
lot.
wasn't all this dog shelter stuff, the school board property transfers and things like that, why wasn't this all worked out before?
I don't think you realized you were getting a grant done, did you?
We didn't.
Why wasn't there a master plan done though?
We
That's
weren't going to move it, it was gonna stay where it was.
Right.
It was always gonna stay there?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you would've got the grant, so why isn't it just staying there then and being updated?
For future growth, so we can access the back of our property, which we will need to do.
For what?
Or
For what do you need that road to access?
Well, you never know, it's flat property, we could use it for anything.
Yeah, so just because you don't have a master plan saying exactly what we're gonna do in the future doesn't mean that, in our hands are tied somehow by doing that. You can, by moving that off of there, if I put it back up on the screen, the dog shelter's right smack dab in the middle of the parcel. And I was all for it. Mrs. Piscola will tell anybody, she and I talked about this, I was all for the renovation of that. But there's no denying that if you look at that from a bird's eye view, it's right smack dab in the middle of that parcel.
Where it is now?
Yes. And again, what I mentioned, Mr. Shoup and I talked about this as well. Right now, they don't have toilets or anything in there, but they wash dogs, they have a sink, basin, and all that water goes directly into a sump pit.
Plus, we have to talk about the fact that the public works is going to have to get off of school property. And we have no way to access.
So when you talk about a master plan, this is all the machinations of it. This is how it starts.
I think the more concerning part of that discussion is the fact that we have 4 years left on the lease. 4? Is that what was said? I mean, what are we gonna do if we can't access our public works building?
That's something we need to be discussing.
In the discussion you're having with the school board, can we get an extension now?
That's what I was gonna ask.
We could,
5 years.
and that's what happened last, we didn't have a lease agreement with them.
They gave us an extension when I was on the board last.
Well, we didn't have a lease.
Yeah, we didn't even have, we got to get one.
So when they started threatening that, well, we may want to take over the public works garage, use it as a bus garage, another bus garage, we said, hey, what are we gonna do with all of our equipment? That's when we signed the 20-year lease. And, Mr. Fleming was on the board.
So they're aware of that. Larry and I talked about that, but it's all in the whole conversation of him going to his board, which should have been today,
Right.
but because the election was have to wait
I
till
mean,
June
this is,
second.
this is going on in the school forever. I mean, you when the bank was done.
So we also explained that we're willing to put, that we're going to put a path for the kids that go to the dogs. So to make it safer, so they're not walking on East Union Road. So we want to work with them to make this kind of like a big compound for both. Work together.
Get them away from the road.
Yes, for a lot of reasons. So I pitched that to him. He's only one person, just like I am, so we just have to go and do it for him with the engineer. So all of these things, when we spoke to the chair and the vice chair, right, Christie, all of these things were brought up. We just have to go there and talk to the entire board instead of going through one person, so that we can get some answers.
So you weren't aware of any funding that was coming into the dog shelter while this was being designed, correct?
Correct, because I didn't apply for a grant yet.
When's the, and if you could, please tell me again, when's that school board meeting?
I wrote it down.
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
We have an agenda now established, a partial agenda for the planning commission in June. You want to include any of this site work through Mr. Shute, so the planning commission can maybe give you some input as well?
We're not there yet. Again, we don't, till you know what the school district says, we're even.
It would be our June meeting, the school meeting is the second, our meeting would be towards the end of the month. You'll have more information then.
But they have to come back to the entire board again.
So if they say yes, then that moves us forward with our plan. We could certainly get input, but we can't cart before the horse.
Like, you don't even know if that's just two members of this board, yourself and Mr. Holloway.
But if it sounds positive, I mean, we could always mention it to the planning commission to talk about it. I mean, it's not like we're making any decisions, but if we get a positive response, there's actually an option on it there. We don't know what they're gonna say.
You don't know exactly.
But if they are, yeah, we could absolutely ask the planning commission for some input. Thank you.
Anyone else? Told you guys to find a guy in blue suit.
Good evening. My name's Dave Schaefer, I live at 1871 High Point Lane, Allison Park, 15101. My main concern is where Cedar Ridge Road intersects with 910, and the potential for a lot more traffic congestion and accidents because of the addition of Rose Ridge Housing Plan. Specifically, if you have to make a left, you're going west on 910, you have to make a left on Cedar Ridge. Very dangerous. Also, if you're going down Cedar Ridge, you have to make a left on 910. It's very dangerous. I know it's 910, it's a state road, but any help Westier could provide us would, I'd appreciate it.
So you spoke to Jeremy Schaefer, I had a great time, and I didn't have time to discuss it, but right
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we spoke yesterday at the polls.
Right.
We have a great relationship with him, but he talked about the slip on Mountain View. It's not just repairing roads, it's a whole slip problem. He knows the issues and he's.
So I should address it with Jeremy Schaefer?
That's who you spoke to yesterday.
I addressed the Mountain View with him. I addressed this. But you
His
guys,
office is
don't
right
you
there.
have any influence over the state a little bit?
If we had influence, Mountain View would be fixed.
And, one other question too, why wasn't the developer, why did they only put one entrance and exit? Why didn't they put another one down further on 910? It would alleviate some of that problem there, that intersection there.
So at the time,
Did you approve the development plan and denied another exit entrance?
No, Scott, that's his.
I mean, it's been a while. I know there were multiple meetings with PennDOT. PennDOT had the ultimate decision on access to.
It would have helped a little bit,
But-
but right now, they only go in and out one way. And if they're, if they're going to North Park, they're going,
Right.
yeah.
I think your visibility gets bad down there too, the further you go down around that bend, I think your
Right.
visibility gets worse.
Right.
I questioned that when the plan was going in, PennDOT would not give them the permit to keep that golf course entrance that was there. Because it has to deal with line of sight. I thought it would be better closer to that intersection, for a
Yes.
future light, but PennDOT wouldn't budge on that. That part's out of our hands. And going back to your first point, I would hope that we could contact PennDOT and see if they can keep those line of sights open, because as the vegetation grows, it's very hard to see up and down
Yes, yes.
910. And I know what they've said before, like, if you wanna do it, go ahead and do it, but I think that's for your example, we get tons of accidents there.
Yes,
And
I know.
it's because of line of sight there, coming out of Cedar Ridge.
All right.
So
Well, thank you very much.
Jeremy Schaefer's building is right down, did he tell you where his office is?
I know where it's at, yeah.
Okay.
I'll be done. Thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Yep. 8:42, yep. Motion adjourned. Thanks for coming.